We really appreciate the support of SCAN, and also I think the creativity and innovation of the Aspen Institute, who thought it was a great idea to, when we're talking about Spotlight Health, to spotlight children and also hear about children's health from the actual children themselves. It shouldn't be such a revolutionary concept, but sadly it kind of is. So we wanted to turn that on its head a bit and invite some of our patients at Children's National, and then also another really special patient that we've gotten to know, Ellie Wheeler, who is part of the panel. And I'll introduce each of them in turn, and then I'll spend some time asking some questions that I'm curious about, and then we'll have the audience provide we'll provide you an opportunity to ask questions about their perspectives or things they may have learned or things that you should know. So, as was said, I am the president and CEO of Children's National, a big children's hospital in Washington, D.C. I wasn't always a CEO. Most of my career, I was a general pediatric surgeon at Children's. One of my good friends is here in the audience, a pediatric orthopedic surgeon, Mike Thomas. We started out together and operated, had shared lockers right beside each other. He's not at Children's anymore. He's having a great career in Las Vegas, but it's great to see Mike here. And I'll ask him probably to say a couple of things later on. So we have the privilege today to hear from some very special kids. Each of them has in the past, pretty much in the past, been fighting a serious disease, and they're still, in some cases, dealing with the situation. They've courageously dealt with, survived, and even succeeded with cancer, heart disease, lost limbs, or facing a lifetime of chronic illness. And it's tough for parents to know how to support kids like that. We got another superhero right here in the front row. You saw her up here, Riley. Riley's another patient. She was on another panel, so we kind of worked her out a little bit today. But she also has survived cancer and is succeeding. Because caring for a sick child can be overwhelming. I mean, it's hard enough with healthy kids, and then you put that pressure on there, and then it influences the whole family and support group. So to get going today, I did ask the kids, and I'll bring this into their introduction. We asked them about their experience of being seriously ill, and the question we asked was, what scared them the most? So we wanted to hear from them. And as I introduce them, I'll provide the answer on that one that they gave us, but you may want to expand on that before. I want to start by introducing Jaiwen Hsu. Jaiwen is going to be a senior in high school, and I just learned, I didn't know this. Now, sometimes when you're CEO, you don't know everything, but his sister just started her pediatric residency at Children's National. How cool is that? So, and she's also a big fundraiser for children. She does the Turpathon at the University of Maryland, where they dance for 12 hours straight to raise money. And the reason they pick 12 hours, these kids pick 12 hours, because that's how long a nurse stands on their feet during a shift. Isn't that kind of cool? Anyway, off topic a little bit, but I love that. Jaiwen was 11 years old when he was diagnosed with osteosarcoma, which is a type of bone cancer. He underwent extensive chemotherapy and surgery, and today, look at him. I mean, have you seen a more handsome, elegant, debonair young man? And he rallies the community to support kids, and he has his own fundraising event and activity. And he has a set sight on being an entrepreneur. And I know there's a few of those out here in Aspen, so you might want to bet early on this guy. What scared him about being ill, he said, the unknown was the scariest part. Not knowing what he had and what would happen to him. That's really scary. Next to Jaiwen is Amanda Merrell. Amanda's 14 years old now, but when I first met her, I think you might have been 2 or 3 years old. And she was diagnosed with a different type of bone cancer. It's called Ewing sarcoma. And it's a very dangerous and rare type of cancer. And she had lots of chemotherapy to fight that. And eventually, she had to have her left leg amputated. She is so incredibly strong and courageous and determined. She's an athlete. She plays soccer. I know you dance, basketball. I think on the way out here, I heard that you went to the U.S. Olympic Training Center in Colorado Springs to check it out.
Yeah.
So you'll tell us a little bit about that. And it takes, all of this takes courage. But she said that the scariest part of being sick was, now get this, not knowing if I would make it to the next day. And that's something that most adults have trouble with when they're sick. So think about having that when you're only a few years old and you're worried about making it to the next day. Next we have Olivia Jones. Big smile, Olivia, there it is. Boy, that's a killer smile. Now, when you look at Olivia today, you would never believe that at 6 months old, she was diagnosed with a deadly heart disease. It's called idiopathic dilated cardiomyopathy. And she spent 3 months in the pediatric intensive care unit at Children's before she was really stable enough to go home and then wait for a heart transplant. She had to wait until there was a donor for that heart transplant. She spent 296 days on the national transplant list waiting for that. And her family finally got the call, and a heart was available for her. And so she was transported to the Children's Hospital of Philadelphia, another great children's hospital. And that's one of the wonderful things about children's hospitals is that we all work together. And she received her new heart up there. She's now 12 years old, and I heard that you just had a 10-year anniversary of celebrating your new heart. Is that true?
Yes.
Oh, awesome. That must have been. And I heard that you thought that one of the scariest memories, so we all, take a lot of things for granted when as adults we go through the hospital. But here, think about a child having a gas mask put over her face to administer the anesthesia instead of an IV drip. And she didn't like that because she felt like she couldn't breathe. And, it's just very, very scary when we don't think of the impact of these things on children. And last, batting cleanup, and I hope you saw her presentation at the opening yesterday, is another superstar, and that's Ellie Wheeler. Ellie became ill when she was 13 years old, I think. And she was admitted to the hospital at that point for a total of 30 days. She had 3 surgeries. She needed IV nutrition and needed a wheelchair. She has something called Ehlers-Danlos syndrome. It's a very rare genetic disease that affects the body's collagen, one of the proteins. But as you can see, it hadn't fazed her a bit. She's a beautiful 16-year-old, and as she'll tell you, she's much more than her illness. She's not defined by her illness. She's a sister, a daughter, a writer, a fighter, an artist, and an advocate, and she has big goals for her future too, such as writing a book and traveling the world. So thank you for being with us here today, Ellie. And this is kind of a homecoming for her because she grew up here for a while. We have some Aspenites, is that what you call them, right in this area. So if they start cheering, it's okay. But I think Ellie said that really what scared her is that the time it took to find out what was wrong. It took 2 years to find out the source of her illness, and she was thinking all during that time, if they're having much trouble figuring it out, was she not going to get the care she really needed? And so, so you've heard these introductions. think it also speaks a lot that they're up here, they're willing to have me tell their story, and they're willing to share their story. So to get started, I'd like to ask you all a question. Thinking back, Jaiwen, we'll start with you. When you were in the hospital going through treatment, what mattered the most to you? What did you hold on to that really kept you going while you were undergoing the treatment?
Well, fortunately for me, my chemo rounds only lasted about a week each time. I would have 1 week, go home for the weekend, and do that 3 times, and then I'd have a few weeks at home. And so I think one thing that I really held on to was the fact that, yeah, I'm in the hospital now, I'm not going to school, I'm not seeing my friends, but if I just get through this week, I can go home, I can see my friends, I can see my family. And just little hopes like these, the small things that really matter that create a difference between the hospital and your home. Sleeping in my own bed, eating my own food, using my own bathroom. Just those little things that we take for granted a lot of the times. When you're in the hospital, they really go away. And so I think I really homed in on that and just held on to that to just push me through each day until I finally got able to go home.
Nice. Amanda, how about you? What kept you going? What did you hang on to that really was going to make it happen?
My sisters and my family helped me through a lot of it. And what mattered to me was that they always stuck with me, but I didn't get to see my sisters that much. So that was one of the scary parts also, not being able to see them. And
so you really, your family was there, but when you couldn't see them, it really put a lot of pressure on you.
yeah, a lot of pressure.
Olivia.
Well, I still go every 90 days for a checkup, but when I go, what matters to me is to always find that favorite doctor that I've known for a really long time. For labs, I always go to the same person because I've gained their trust, and yeah.
So it sounds like you've picked out your team. You know who's good and who's not. I need to talk with you about that because I need to find out the real stuff on the front line here. So that's important. I remember in talking to you, you told me that sometimes the doctors and nurses don't really talk to you in the right way, that maybe they're talking to somebody else or they're not really sharing the information the way that they should. Could you expand on that a little bit?
I mean, the way that they explain it sometimes is in an adult way, and I don't really understand, so then I have to go back and ask what's going to happen to me.
And so it'd be a lot better if they broke it down and
Yes.
talked with you in ways that you understood and not just to your parents or whatever.
Yeah.
So that's an important thing for any of the doctors and nurses out here is we got to put the things into the language of the kids. Ellie, what did you hang on to? What during those 2 years, that must have been really tough to go through.
Yeah, it was. And I am very, very lucky because I have amazing people surrounding me. I just have a whole cloud of love and light surrounding me and my friends and my family. And so particularly when I was in the hospital, I would just create little adventures. I would take the hard parts and just add a little bit of fun. I would be in tremendous amounts of pain. I would be sick. I wouldn't be able to get out of the bed, but I would still find a way to take my mind off of it for a few minutes and create a little bit of an adventure, whether that meant just walking down the hall to look out the window or my mom reading me a book because I couldn't read myself at that point. And that was really helpful to me, and it made it more bearable.
So I've heard all of you say it's not necessarily all the big things, the big parties or anything like that. A lot of times it's just the little things to take your mind off or focus on going home or seeing your sisters or being talked to, just having a good conversation with people. Was there someone or something that gave you the strength, like in the really hard moments that you really locked on to?
Yeah, I think I had a very supportive community and a very supportive family. I was very fortunate for that. My school rallied behind me. They sent cards, they sent posters. My family would come visit me whenever they could when they weren't busy. If they were busy, they'd bring their homework, they'd bring their work. And when I went home, they were always there. But I think the one person that really pushed me to keep fighting was my mom, sitting in the front row. She was there every day I was at the hospital. As much as I hate to admit it, thank you for making me do all my physical therapy.
Can we get that on film? Get that on film.
And so I really owe a lot to her. I don't think I really could have made it through without her help.
Wow. And Amanda?
I remember this one time when the nurses really helped me out when I was about to get out of the hospital, and I got really sick. And I remember on my 3rd birthday, they came in and they made me a cake and they gave me presents, and that really helped a lot and just kind of made me cheer up and made me not think about like the bad side.
Yeah, I can see that. Was there one nurse or a special person?
There were a lot of nurses.
A lot of
that
nurses.
came in and spent their time and helped me. So that was one of the times I kind of remember.
Beautiful, beautiful. And Olivia, how about you?
When I do the stress tests every year and I get really tired running on the treadmill, and when I feel like that I might fall off and I want to like stop, my nurse always like encouraged me to go faster and faster until it's over.
Wow. Do you look forward to that treadmill test, or do you?
No.
No. I was hoping. Ellie, how about you? Is there one person? Or
Now, I have to say, in case she sees this, Taylor Swift. But also my mom.
Yeah. Well, they kind of look alike. I mean.
And something
And you kind of look like Taylor Swift to me.
Thank you. And something that helped me keep going and gave me strength was a project that I created called the Superhero Project, and it is just designed to empower the fights of others and inspire the superhero within all of us. And that really helped me because I had a way to help others, and I had a way to learn through that how to empower my own fight and find the goodness in it.
Well, it's kind of interesting. You and Jaiwen, you're both a little older than the other two, that you've kind of reached out beyond your own situation, and now you're helping other kids, you're raising money, this doesn't seem to be a hurdle or much that you really it's not defining your illness. Is that how you think about it?
I think I agree with that. I think it's the reason, at least for me, why I'm trying to really advocate for cancer awareness, especially with younger children, is that people don't always realize what's going on. A lot of the times I've heard that you don't see what happens in a hospital, you don't see what happens with a cancer patient unless it's personally affecting you. And I mean, we're guilty of the same. When before this all happened, we would donate here and there, but we really didn't pay as much attention as we should have. And after I was diagnosed, we really saw that a lot of the times people, like I said before, they take things for granted. And so I'm just really trying to tell people that life isn't always that perfect. Some things, your car breaks down, you're late for work, those things aren't that big. There are a lot bigger things that you should be worrying about. And those things that I think if we come together, either as a family, as a community, as a school, or as an entire nation, if we come together and we unify behind that, we can really make a difference about those things.
Wow. When are you going to be running for president? I want to get behind you on that one. I'm going to move it a little different. Was it important to you to keep up with school and your friends, Amanda, when you were in the hospital? And did it make it more difficult when you were missing them?
Well, I didn't really remember much, but there was this one friend in the hospital, and she would help me a lot through the tough times. And I would go to her room, and she would let me play with like her dolls or like anything, and she didn't mind either, and she was really nice, and she helped me through it. And
So you made a friend in the hospital that you became really close with that helped you
Yeah.
along.
yeah.
Did the others of you have that experience when you were in the hospital, making friends in the hospital? Ellie, you're nodding over there.
Yeah, I actually not in the hospital, but when I moved to Orange County about a year ago, I found this community of other girls who most of them also had the same illness as I do. And there's just an awesome community of us who all can understand. We will tell each other which doctors to go to and which tests to do. And that's actually the reason that I figured out what was wrong with me. And it has been so helpful because if I'm feeling awful, I can go over to one of their couches and we can watch a reality TV show and eat cookie dough. And they understand. And I have amazing, healthy friends, but it's a little bit different. It's a little bit different dynamic because there are parts that you just can't understand from the outside. And so that has been really awesome.
Now, Olivia, you've got something in your lap there that you're holding. What are those? Can you tell the folks what those are? Because I've seen those, but I want to be sure they know what they are.
They're my beads of courage, and they represent every day since I was in the hospital, my journey and how like strong I am. So, for example, the red bead means a blood transfusion, or black bead means a lab, and this yellowish greenish bead means that I stayed overnight at the hospital, and this Santa bead means I spent my first Christmas in the hospital. And this is my transplant bead. And every bead after that means that I got a new start at life.
Whoa. I don't know if everybody can you, it might be really heavy, but can you hold up all those beads? My goodness.
And I have 1,046 of them.
1,046, okay. Now, Amanda, I know you've got some beads too. Was that a helpful thing for you to have, to all the things that you went through?
Yeah, it helped a little bit because once you like make it and you look back at it, you're like, wow, I actually went through like all that trouble and I didn't.
So, and now it's just in the past, it's a reminder, but, not a big deal anymore.
Yeah.
That's pretty amazing, isn't it? Wow. So tell me a little bit about things that when you're in the hospital, were there some of your friends and people that didn't quite know how to deal with the situation, that it might be awkward, or they might say something that wasn't really sensitive? Did you have experiences like that?
Not as much with my friends feeling awkward or not knowing what to do, but I think it was actually the other way around. It was me not knowing how to act around my friends. I didn't really want them to be sympathetic towards me. I wanted to show them that I was still strong. I do slightly regret this, but I really didn't tell any of my friends to visit me or in the hospital, because honestly, I didn't want to see them. I didn't want them to see me at a low point. And they were very encouraging with me. They saw me when I went home. And I think what they did that really helped was they treated me normally. And I think that was the number one thing that could have helped. I kept looking at it differently, saying that, well, I'm not the same as them anymore now. I'm afraid they're going to look at me differently. They're not going to invite me to this, invite me to that, but they still did, because those are what friends are for. They're there for the toughest times, and they stick with you. And no matter what happens to you, they're always there, and they treat you like a friend.
Amanda, do you have any thoughts on that?
Well, kind of like to relate what you said. The friend in the hospital, she kind of didn't really treat me differently because she knew what I was going through, and that helped too, to know that she helped me through it. And
because I've seen you dance, play soccer, and you don't let any of, your situation, your leg, it's not a problem for you. Is it a problem sometimes for other people? They don't know what to say if they see you?
Sometimes like when I play like sports or something, they don't think that I can do it. But then once I do it, they're like,
Like
oh.
once you score a goal on them, they say, "Whoa, I'm going to play a little harder against you this time," or something.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can see that. Ellie,
Yeah, I had lots and lots of friends before I became chronically ill, and I actually lost most of my friends when I became sick because I wasn't the same girl. I wasn't playing field hockey on the weekends. I wasn't going to school every day. I wasn't going out on the weekends, and I just wasn't the same person, and they couldn't really accept that. And so looking back, I'm glad that I'm not friends with them anymore because they weren't worth it to me. And now I've found amazing friends who I might just change the world with and who know how to act around me. They know that they can laugh at my jokes about my illness. And even my healthy friends, it was a little bit of a learning curve, and it just took a little bit of communication. And I just had to tell them, don't pity me, don't treat me differently. We can still do the same things, just maybe at a little downscale it. And after I talked to them about that and we all adjusted, it was fine. And I lost those friends who weren't gonna stick with me, and that's okay because they weren't worth it to put in the effort if they weren't gonna put in the effort for me and they weren't gonna accept this part of me that I have no control over.
wow. Well, I've heard all of you say that you don't want to be pitied, you don't want to be put on a pedestal, you want to be treated normally, and just like any kid, and that this illness is not the be all and end all. It's just part of who you are, but you need to move on, and you don't want any special treatment or any pity. Is that a good way of summing up what you've said?
Yeah, I think it's also important to kind of find a silver lining between when you're to be treated normally and when you're to be treated as a hospital patient. I mean, of course, I had to tell myself sometimes like, yeah, I can't run. And so I really couldn't do some of the things that my friends could do. But I also had to tell myself like, oh, well, they're doing this, I can do this too. I just have to modify it a little to suit my comfort. And so I think finding that silver lining in between it really brings both of them together and really kind of, I want to say, makes a new life for you. You adapt to what you have, the cards that you're dealt, and you find a more normal sense in those things.
I don't want to be pitied, but on the other side, I don't want to be called an inspiration just because I'm disabled. Someone once came up to me recently when I was in my wheelchair, and they said I was such an inspiration. All I was doing was out at the grocery store with my mom. I was just being a normal person. I want to be an inspiration for my advocacy and for the superhero project and things that matter, not just for some part of me that was written in my DNA that I have no control over, because that's not inspirational. If you were in my seat, you would adjust. You would make life doable for you, and that's not what I want to be an inspiration for.
So, Olivia, I'm going to start with you on this one. Now, if you had one piece of advice, because I think you all were saying that brothers and sisters were important when you're sick, what would you give? What advice would you give to that brother or sister to help with a sick when you were sick?
Be very understanding of, because your siblings are really sick and you may not know, and just don't try to get mad at them because it's probably not their fault because they're really sick and you don't know what they're going through. So,
boy, that's a good piece of advice. Amanda, how about you?
Probably just to be just kind of have hope that they will get better, and that try to live the most of it, and
How did you stay in touch? Because I think I heard you say that there were times where you didn't get to see your sisters as much as you wanted. How did you stay in touch with them? Was that important to you?
Well, they didn't really have like phones, like really, cause I was like 2. So, but like I had this like little like stuffed animal that like you could like record stuff like on it, and so when my mom went home, like my sister would like say something on it like I love you or like good night or something, and then my mom would take it back, and then I could just listen to it over and over.
Wow, that's kind of cool. And you want to stand? Or we've got Amanda's mom right here, so in the front row here. Well, great. Did you want to say anything about that?
I mean, yeah, it's important for your siblings to be supportive. I think it's also important to be supportive in different ways other than just, the get better soon, I'm here for you. My siblings and I actually, we bonded a lot through food. I had these crazy cravings, and they would deliver.
What? What's a craving?
Well, the basic of it wasn't crazy. I mean, it was Chipotle, but then the
Chipotle,
next day would also be Chipotle, and the following would also be Chipotle. And so, I went through all these stages of crazy.
Chipotle.
Yeah, basically. And they would deliver every time they came to the hospital to visit me. And, in those, I want to say that like 2-3 hours of grace, we really just forgot about the hospital setting, the monitors beeping, the chemo, and we really just enjoyed Chipotle, and that was great. And thinking back, those are some of my best memories in the hospital. Even now, I still go to Chipotle more than I like to admit, but it's a nice reminder of how this got me through some tough times.
Great. Ellie, any thoughts on that one?
Yeah, actually, when I got sick, my brothers got a lot nicer, I will say. But they were really great when I first got sick because
Are they older? Or
I have one older and one younger, so I'm the middle child, 2 brothers.
Did they used to gang up on you before you got sick? Is that part of the deal?
Yeah. And when I was sick and in the hospital, my mom was with me, and my brothers and I live with my mom in California. And so my mom was with me most of the time, and they were home alone, and they were older, so it wasn't like my older brother was like 18 at the time, so he was taking care of my little brother, and they really made that a sacrifice, and I'm really thankful for that because that was a time that I really needed my mom, and they were more than willing to make that sacrifice. And I'm sure they threw a few parties. And so I would just tell anyone who has a sibling with any kind of illness just to never stop loving them for anything. Never stop loving them and never love them less.
Well, Jaiwen, I think you started on this a little bit, but I want to give everybody a chance to ask, and I'll give it back, let you start. Has being sick and going through the illness that you've gone through affected the way that you look at life now?
I think it's affected in 2 major ways. The first way being my time at the hospital. At first, when I was diagnosed, being confused, scared, I didn't understand why it was happening to me. I thought of all people, it had to be me. I was experiencing the worst luck ever. But as I stayed in the hospital longer, I met new people. I heard stories. I realized that I actually didn't have the worst situation there, and that there were kids staying months while I was going home every week. And so I think the first thing I learned was that I was lucky. There are things that came with my illness that, of course, were not the best. They created some tough times, but there are also things that really made me stronger. And I took that, and basically, outside of the hospital, I realized that a lot of people don't realize these things. And regardless of how sick you are, even if it's my sort of illness or someone who's staying months, they don't see these things. And so it's also important for them to kind of, like I said earlier, to focus on the smaller things and really help everyone that you can when you can with whatever you can. I have a fundraiser at school, and a lot of the times people tell me, I'm sorry, I don't have time, I don't have money, and I say, just give your support. Just showing up, like my mom always says, half the battle is just showing up. And I think that's really important to advocate to everyone that even if you don't think you can help, just try, because you can't hurt anything. It'll just benefit someone out there. And that someone can maybe turn around and help someone else, and that person will help someone else. And by the end of it, everyone's helping each other, and we're hopefully all getting better.
Amanda, how about you? Did being sick change how you looked at the world? I know you were pretty young when you were diagnosed.
Not really, but probably the toughest was probably like learning how to like walk again, cause I like have prosthetics, so it was like kind of getting like used to like using it. And
How
like,
hard was that? I mean, so you knew how to walk, then you were sick, you lost your leg, then had to get. Was it this prosthesis that you got, or did you go through a couple of different ones?
I went through like another one, like it was kind of like this one, but except like it bent, like it was like a walking one with like a foot.
Was it really hard to figure out how to do it though?
I mean, I don't really remember much, but I remember one of my sisters, she started to like walk, and then I wanted to start walking, so she helped me through that, and she helped me through like how to like work with it.
Work with the new leg.
Yeah.
Nice. Olivia, how about you?
Well, the whole point of my heart transplant was for me to live again. Well, yeah, kind of. And my donor gave me that chance. And now that I think about it, it's really, I know that people out there lose their family members, and then they have to like make that decision for someone to help someone else like me live, and that's really important. I didn't really think of that when I was little, but now like people make really big decisions to save someone's life, like my donor family did that night when they lost their child. So.
Whoa. Wow. You guys are superstars. I mean, to have that kind of perspective, I think that means so much to that family and all the families that you can have that kind of positive and make meaning out of someone else's life. Thank you for sharing that. And your mom's here. I see her right there, Shanae Barnett Jones, who's a board member at Children's. So thank you for being here. And Ellie, how about you?
Well, I learned a lot. I learned a lot about myself and my friends and my family and the world. I talked a little bit about this last night in my speech, but I'll elaborate. In the hardest time in my life, I can confidently say that when I was first became sick, and even now, it's the hardest time in my life, and it's probably one of the hardest things that I will go through. That's when I found what true happiness is. Through chronic pain. I don't remember what it's like to not be in pain. But in the last 3 years of being sick, I have found what true happiness is. I have never been happier, believe it or not. And I have just learned that the world is great and life is great, and it is so important to get busy living. And so my friends and I do these little get busy living activities. And every once in a while, just because we can, because we have the privilege of being able to. And I think that's really important. That's something that I did not do before I got sick, and I did not try to do. I didn't even realize. And so I grew into myself, and I grew into the world around me. And I found a way to help others. I have always wanted to help others, and I've always wanted to make a difference, and I think it was kind of inevitable for me to get involved with social justice because from a young age, my mother taught me about equality and feminism and all of that. And so I think that becoming sick has given me an outlet to do that, and I am really thankful for my illness. I am not happy that I'm sick. I am not happy to have Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, but I am thankful, and I'm thankful for the lessons that I have learned because of it.
And there's your mom right over here. And I think it's just incredible. One theme here is just these incredible moms. I mean, I know that the dads were there too, but you're all talking about your moms, and they're all here, and that's so special. One last thing, question I have before we turn it over to the audience, and maybe it's because I'm a doctor, and you know, you go to medical school and they teach you some things, and you're a resident and they teach you some things, and if you start working with kids, they teach you a lot of things, but it's not. There's not a lot of teaching around how to talk to kids. You sort of have to either know it or you don't. So are there some things that happen to you all that doctors and nurses should remember not to do, or some things that they should do? I mean, does that... now, I'll take it on behalf of all the doctors. You can just give it right to me, okay?
That's a tough one. I think at the start of my treatment, a lot of the times I would be on the hospital bed and my mom would be talking to the doctor towards the door, and I was scared because I didn't know what was going on, but at the same time I was also scared to listen, to hear what was happening. And so I think now that I'm looking back at it, now that I'm older, now that I really understand what had happened to me, I think that if the doctors, they find ways to tell the patients kind of what's going on, or even find ways to tell the patients with their parents what's going on. It's a more unified community, and really, because I think it's important for the parents to work with the doctors, but also for the patients to work with the doctors, no matter how young they are. And so I think the nurses did a great job, at least with me, with that. And they really, at times, they stopped being doctors, they stopped being nurses, and they were my friend. And instead of telling me, well, you have this, you're going to get this chemo, they told me, well, this might hurt a little, or, you know, you might be a little tired now. And those things, as vague as they can be, they help. They help a lot. And, you know, they get you through the night till the next day, until you start understanding what the pain's going to bring, what being a little tired, what that is associated with, what medicine that's associated with. And so I think it's important to be both a doctor with the parents and the patients, and also be a friend of the kids.
Amanda?
My dad told me, like, right before the amputation, that I was gonna get a new leg, and I just got really excited, and I was just like really excited, and that was like kind of like that I knew, and that I actually wanted to do it, and so.
So your dad giving you something positive to think about with the new leg took your mind off of worrying about and being sad about losing your original leg.
Yeah, because I think he told me that I was going to be able to like run again and like be like the other kids and do what they...
And that's turned out to be true. He was right.
Yeah.
Now, were there doctors or nurses that kind of told you things or did things that you didn't like?
No, I don't think so.
Good, well, I better write that one down. Olivia, how about you?
Doctors and nurses should tell the kids what's going to happen to them, so they won't feel scared, or they should like clarify things. And also, the doctors should listen to the kids. For example, once before my cath, my anesthesiologist gave me phenobarbital, and I asked her not to because it makes me cranky. So when I started throwing up a lot, and she went back and she apologized to me in front of like her whole crew, and she said that she should have listened to me, and that means a lot to me, that she went back, because a lot of times doctors and nurses don't do that to kids.
Wait, now let me just get this straight. You said that phenobarbital makes you cranky and you don't like getting it, you shouldn't have it, but the doctor gave it to you anyway?
Yes.
And then you didn't feel good, and you weren't sure why you didn't feel good. And then the doctor came back and actually told you the truth of what happened, and that meant a lot to you. You
No,
didn't get
she
mad?
apologized.
Oh, she apologized for having given it to you when she should have listened to you.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, that's pretty. Being honest sometimes is so important, isn't it?
Yeah.
You'd rather have that than not hear the truth. And Ellie, how about you?
Well, I have not had the best experience with doctors. Like Dr. Newman said, it took me 2 years to get diagnosed. I was just diagnosed in February of this year, and I became chronically ill when I was 13. So between February of 2014 and February of 2016, doctors would constantly tell me, oh, you are just a hormonal girl. You can't really be having this much pain. You can't be this sick. You are too young. You're too pretty. And they would give up on me, and they would not go through the effort to figure out what was wrong with me. And I think being undiagnosed for 2 years or however long it was even harder than being sick in and of itself. And so I think it's really, really important for doctors to, A, believe the patients when they say something is wrong. Because I know my body better than anyone else. I know when something is wrong. And so when I go and see those doctors, when I went and saw those doctors, and they told me, oh, no, nothing's wrong, you're fine, or you're faking. We should get you to the psych ward. You know, it was just awful. It was the worst feeling in the world because I knew something was wrong, but no one would believe me. And luckily, I had amazing family who never stopped advocating for myself, and I learned to advocate for myself. My mom and my dad and my grandma never stopped advocating for me. And that is why I'm diagnosed now and why I have great care now. And I think it's also important to take on the complex cases because not everyone's going to be simple. And the complex kids deserve answers and care just as much as the simple ones. And I think that is really important. And I am really lucky now that I have great care, but it took a while.
Well, thank you all. I think now we've heard from these great kids, and I've had a chance to ask a few questions, but I think there's probably some things people in the audience. Ellen, right here.
You guys were just amazingly inspirational. Thank you. To follow the question about health professionals and maybe what they did that made you feel good or what they did that didn't make you feel so hot, I'm curious, because there are probably also a lot of health administrators in the room. The institution itself, the bells, the whistles, the facility, is there any advice that you have on things in the facility and the running of the hospital that you saw that was either soothing and gentle for you or really rattling for you that you think that maybe hospitals could learn something about?
I think that it is really important to make sure doctors are educated because none of my original doctors had even heard of Ehlers-Danlos syndrome. And I think that's really important that doctors know as much as they can and they continue researching and they continue learning.
Let me just make sure that I heard the question correctly. And that's a great answer, and we need to have doctors in hospitals that are focused on the problems like that. But are there things around the building where the bed's uncomfortable? Did you get activities? What was it like in the hospital? Was the food good? Was the parking bad? I know the answer to that. Just what kinds of things made things good or made things bad that somebody like me, a president of a hospital, should pay attention to? Olivia looks like she's got about 5 on the tip of her tongue there.
Like when I get out of my calf, sometimes, when I was little, the child life specialist came and they brought me toys or movies, and I've seen that nurses, they treat the kids very kindly and are very patient with them.
So child life and having people that are thinking about the kids in school or about the kinds of activities you want is a critical thing.
I think I touched on this before, but the hospital did a really good job of making you feel normal. I think a lot of hospitals could learn from Children's National.
Say that again. I got a couple of board members. I see Marcy Cohen back there.
I'm extremely glad I was treated there. One thing, sorry, I'm alluding back to food. The food on the carts that they brought around weren't always the best, but it was actually after a while that we realized that we could actually request food from the cafeteria, and that was a game changer. That changes the whole
You
situation.
mean you requested Chipotle? No, we didn't go that far.
But there was between the art room, between the teen room, between the child life specialist coming, even the adult volunteers bringing books, bringing cards. One of the favorite things that I always remember, and when I'm trying to describe the hospital, I always tell people were the clowns. They had these two clowns that just they roamed the hospital with their clown outfits and their white coats, and they were absolutely hilarious. No matter how bad I was feeling, they always managed to cheer me up, and it was incredible. Even now, when I go back for checkups, I always look for them, and it's just the things that put a smile on your face that take a little time out of your day and just make you feel happy, make you feel great, make you feel normal.
Amanda?
Oh yeah, I was also I was treated in Children's National, and the art room and the clowns and the nurses, those all helped to keep your mind off of like what was wrong or what was gonna happen or something bad or something scary.
So art, music. Ellie?
Yeah, I'm actually a co-chair of an initiative called We Are More, which is a young adult initiative, and we are currently working with a fabulous organization called InvisiYouth, and they are tackling the issue of adolescents in pediatrics because there's not really a place for us. I mean, there's pediatrics and then there's adults, and we're kind of in that in-between space where we don't really have a designated space. And so children's hospitals are often very childish, and that's great for the young kids, but for adolescents when we're there, it's a little bit weird. And so children's hospitals should be fun and colorful and try to make the hospital better than as good as it can be. But you can't forget about the adolescents, and you can't forget that they are there too, and you can have fun and colorful and things to take your mind off of it without it being childish, because adolescents play a big role in pediatrics and they need their own space. And I think that starts with just the walls of the hospital and the paintings on the hospital walls.
I'm making a lot of notes, so thank you. Another question.
Hi there. I first of all want to thank the panel. You four were incredible. And I had a life-threatening spinal cord tumor as a child. And even now, as a healthy adult, hearing the four of you echo some of the experiences I had or the feelings I felt is very meaningful. So thank you, first of all. I'm also curious because I know having an illness is only part of who you are. And I'd love to just know a little bit more about you and some of the things that you like to do when you're feeling healthy. What are some of the activities you enjoy, some of the things that you love? Just would love to hear that from each of you.
Should I start with that?
Yeah.
All right. In case you haven't guessed by now, I really like food. My mom always gets upset when we try to, go to a nice restaurant. Even just going out on weekdays, there's always that excuse: we have food at home. You have too much homework. Those kill me. Other than that, I've found ways to adapt to the things I like. I used to play tennis. Now I can't run, so I've turned to ping pong. I found more stationary sports. I've been enjoying golf. I used to actually hate golf. Couldn't stand it, just watching. But once you actually get on the green and you actually learn how to hit the ball, it gets pretty fun. Other than that, I'm very interested in leadership at my school. I really have a passion in giving back to the hospital. Like I said earlier, I want to advocate that, just because the cancer is gone, just because that was 5 years ago, it's still with me. A lot of the things, I still have a metal prosthesis inside my leg that still affects me every day. And so I'm really right now I'm a senior in high school now. I'm almost off to college. It's okay, Mom. So I guess I'm trying to find that little, where I kind of belong, if it's in engineering, if it's in leadership. And so I'm excited to start a new chapter in my life and take all the experience I have and bring it with me.
I know you guys already heard that I play sports, but one of my favorites is basketball, because most of the time, people, as I said, underestimate, but, and so I really like doing sports, and I love running, as I said, but yeah, I just really.
What was it like when you went to the U.S. Paralympic Training Center in Colorado Springs? How did you feel when you were there?
It was kind of nice to know that that there was more people that have prosthetics, because I don't really meet a lot of people that have prosthetics, so it was nice to talk to someone that did.
And these were big time athletes too, right? I mean,
Yeah.
you were talking to them; they were big. Olivia, how about you?
I like to draw. I like art just recently. And yeah, I like to draw and I like to listen to music a lot. And I took some tennis lessons, even though I'm not that big of an athlete. And so I've been doing dance since I was 3, and I'm pretty interesting at that. And so, yeah.
Nice.
Everything. Like I had said before, I run the Superhero Project, which is my little baby. And I love art, I love writing, and I've started writing since I became sick, which it is my passion now, is one of my passions. I love social justice, I love feminism, I am a feminist, I love watercolors, I love Taylor Swift. A lot. And I love hanging out with my friends, and I am sick, but that's one part. That is 1%, and there's a lot more, and we don't have enough time to tell you all about it.
Well, I think that's a great place to stop. I think what we've heard today is just this incredible optimism, the spirit of these young people, how they're not defined by their illness. They don't want to be pitied. They don't feel sorry for themselves. They've worked through this, and they've just got these incredible aspirations and horizons to do great things. And in many ways, their illness has given them new insights, and has certainly given me new insights around our hospital, our doctors, our nurses, how we need to talk with kids, and how we need to think differently about adolescents and young adults, and that's just such an incredible perspective. And that finally we need to have more Chipotle in our hospital because. But anyway, thank you all. The panel is going to stay here for a little bit if you want to get their business cards. There are some entrepreneurs and things up here. And then there may or may not be, I don't know, the final or reception here. So if there's a reception, please stay. But thank you all for being such a great audience.